and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pan African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata and our special guest for today, Ambassador Dr. Wallace Williams, who is not here for the first time, who is here, who is a prominent Pan African on the continent and in the diaspora, well-known expert in the domains of trade, development, leadership, and more. I want to start by welcoming all of you that are joining the stream for tonight. And our topic for today is going to be the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and African leadership. What is it that Africans need to know about this very special rebirth of an agreement that has been officially launched? And just like any other projects on the continent, Africans would be the last people to get involved in such processes. Tonight, we have our expert and our guest who is going to educate, inform, and mentor us on what Africans should know about the Africa Free Trade Continental Area, particularly what is the role of Africans in it and Africa's development and leadership. Now, what is it that we shall be focusing on? We shall be focusing on a continent that its leadership may seem ready, but the projects on the continent does not prove that. No infrastructures, less infrastructures. I don't want to say no at all. Of course, they're existing, but not in proper shape. Healthcare is collapsing, particularly in the COVID-19 pandemic, where other countries are looking for solutions. Africa is still not ready. And we're looking for on a continent with 1.2 million people on the continent, but actually zero production capacity, manufacturing, and all that. So what is the Africa Free Trade Continental Trade Area or Agreement all about? Is it a profit for Africans? Is it a profit for developed world and investors? What is it all about? So please join me as we welcome our guest for tonight, and we're going to be sharing this conversation. Please be aware, we're going to open our lines to take questions and to take your comments. And thank you also for commenting on the stream live. We're going to take some of your questions directly if you cannot access us by call. So let's go. Welcome, Ambassador. Happy to see you. Happy New Year for the second time.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. You need to make a correction. It's not 1.2 million, but it's 1.2 billion people on the continent.
My bad, 1.2 plus billion people on the continent. Thank you so very much, Excellency. Yes, let us roll. How have you been rolling? How has 2020 been, and how is 2021 looking like?
Well, 2021 has a lot to work out for Africans. The COVID pandemic, or whatever conspiracy theorists continent during 2021. That has not been identified as yet. But one thing I must say, if we just as a preface before we get on to the trade agreement, is that Africans must now look inwards to find their own solution for a pandemic which has been brought onto the world. So we have epidemiologists, we have the ability to manufacture and find our own, if you want to call it vaccines or solutions to such a problem. Let us look inwards to our own African scientists, doctors, epidemiologists. I don't buy the theory that we have to inherit from China, India, Russia, etc. On the African continent. Talking about the African Free Trade Area, yes, you can admit that the first time African leaders have come together and got one thing right. They have at least put a free trade agreement in place that they have now launched on the 1st of January. But as you asked, and you begged the question, is Africa prepared? Is Africa ready for such an agreement? I beg to say no. They have to work on the agreement. and they have to put a number of things in place. Let's look at, for example, harmonization. You have to harmonize, standards for the African free trade area. What about intra-trade? What about intra-travel? There's no free movement among the countries, right? Visas, for example, every African country has visas, or they're now opening up and saying visa on arrival for other Africans. But everyone else can find themselves on the continent without having a visa and can do business on the continent. So there's a disadvantage already to Africans on the continent, non-starters. They don't have manufacturing capacity. They don't have transfer of knowledge. They don't have skills. And if people come to the continent, they are going to be using the continent for the market. The fear is the dumping of goods. If you come and you put a shoe on the continent and you tap a nail into it, you now call it an African product and you sell it into the continent. You're still paying poor wages, $1 per hour, per worker. There are so many things that need to be put in place. The standards, the infrastructure you spoke about. Where are the infrastructures for moving goods, services, and people in the continent? If you look at the United States of America, if you look at Germany, if you look at France, if you look at China, they all have infrastructure to move people and goods together. What do we have? Instead, you have infrastructure that is meant to take all the resources out of the country and go elsewhere. That is things that we should have been prepared before we set up an African free trade agreement. We should have made sure that already, 20 years, we should have been protecting the continent and protecting the productivity of the continent. So we should have had transfer of knowledge. We should have had skills, skilling up, workforce development to fill those gaps. Local content, components manufacturing on the continent, so that we can say, what do we say, for example, if people just come and start to assemble and we have no knowledge of that component? We have not been able to develop it. We've not been able to manufacture it. So it's great to say, yes, we have leadership that said we have launched the African Free Trade Agreement. But Africa, from my point of view, is not prepared. They should have had at least 20 years of protecting the continent and preparing for that free trade. We would have been able to move freely among ourselves. We would have been able to have the infrastructure in place to move goods and people either by air or by land. Talking about air, what about open skies? Open skies agreement to make sure that everyone can fly into each other's territory instead of having to go to another territory before you come back to the continent. All those are things that we need to put in place, Suzanne.
It sounds like we haven't even, it's a typical African continent leadership model, always taking steps always taking the second steps without the first. And
absolutely.
Yes, some critics are already saying, His Excellency, this is another scam. This is another Eurocentric or Western-centric agenda on the continent. What would you say?
Well, yes, because if you look at it now, there are already the UK has bilaterals with Ghana, right? Trade bilaterals with Ghana. The French with the French countries, right? You have other European countries and the US, etc. They all have bilaterals. What does it mean at the end of the day? If you have bilaterals with these countries and everybody's sneaking in and doing their own little trade agreements, and then they will get the leadership, the same leadership that put together the African Free Trade Agreement, to now do at the side bilateral agreements with other countries, Eurocentric, as you said, or Western countries. It defeats the purpose of having an African free trade agreement for the benefit of Africans. at the end of the day, you are not going to get the benefit as a people, as a country, as a continent of African free trade agreement. They know that you are not prepared. They know that you are going to make a lot of missteps. What we have to do is now look at what we have started and start putting things in place. The harmonization issue, the standards issue, the local content issue, the skilling up and skill gaps issue. All those are things that we need to put into place now. It is not a question, and that is where the leadership comes in. Where does the leadership come in? You have just a few of the leaders who are getting prepared. You know, Rwanda is a good model. Tanzania is a good model. Even the Ghana that has set, a bilateral trade agreement with the UK also has a good model. For example, in Ghana, they say you put an industry in a province or in an area, you're not going to have the same industry in that area. That's a good model. And also, you participate with the locals and you transfer knowledge, you transfer skills. Yes, so that's a good model. That should be replicated throughout Africa. And that will show that, look, at least everybody wants to trade, but let the trade be fair. You know, you are bringing investment, but what are we getting at the end of the day from that investment? Are we getting the skills? Are we getting the transfer of knowledge? Are we going to build up our own capacity? Are we going to have our own manufacturing? Are we going to do our own assembly? Are we going to learn about components manufacturing? You know, those are things that are vital if we are going to be, as a continent, compete with the other continents and the other European and US countries. We have to be able to get to that stage. And it is protectionism that is going to do that. We have to protect our own trade first. And China did it. They protected their own for how many? 20, 30 years before they were able to now join the WTO. They were ready. We are not ready. That's the point. And leaders have got to say, look, let's negotiate. Whoever wants to come and take part in our free trade area, if you want to come and manufacture and assemble, let's have agreements that will be to our benefit. The strategic policy of the leadership should be, let's partner for a win-win. You want to come, you want to take advantage of 1.2 billion people, let us also benefit. You know, if you're bringing your investment, you're bringing your expertise. We can put a timeline for exiting also. You know, if you come and you want to take advantage of the continent, let's have a timeline for your exiting. And that is something that we don't do. We don't have an exit clause. We just allow people to come and do whatever they want on the continent. That has to stop. And that's where Africacy has been talking about African solutions to African problems. Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves, and African development goals.
Um, I don't know. Excellency, absolutely. This continent and its leadership is not ready. But we see the possibility for Africans to engage because they're never even going to consider them. You talk about knowledge and skills transfer. Isn't this a continent? I mean, I talk because you represent the diaspora, the voice of the diaspora worldwide. And isn't this a country that has to, first of all, put its seat region, even the structures, and try to transfer this? I mean, like even infrastructure in terms of human resources and skills together. Wasn't that the first steps to put basic things together?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is tap what you have. What do we have? We have 70% youth on the African continent. 70%. Let's take a page out of the book of the Indians, right? India went to Mumbai, and what did they do? They incubated their youths into IT. What happened at the end of the day? The Indian IT economy grew at a tremendous pace. UK, US, everyone else was outsourcing their business, whether it's telephony, whether it was banking, to Mumbai, to the Indian youth who were developed, India had a plan. And they saw, why can't we do the same thing? Why can't we do the same thing to our youth? Incubate them, incubate, and they are talented. Our youth on the continent are talented in IT. Incubate them and let us outsource those knowledge base, our own knowledge base, to the rest of the world. That is one of the first things you're doing. You're empowering the continent, because 70% of the youth on the continent, almost 90% of them, are unemployed. And they should be given the ability to utilize skills and knowledge base. And you need to incubate. And that's where leadership comes in, that you're talking about. Leadership. Getting ready for this African free trade area. Where are the skills that we have on the continent that can take advantage of that? Apart from all the things we talk about, infrastructure, open skies, movement, free entry into countries, etc. Where are we able to take advantage of the skills and the ability to transform those skills into productivity? We have no leadership that's doing that except for a few countries who have seen the vision and who have realized that they need to tap into the youth of the continent. Every single African country, right, has a right to take now their youth and prepare them for this African free trade. They should all be involved in SMEs. They should all be involved in some form of manufacturing of goods and services. And these are the things that is promoted intra-Africa. Those are the things that we need to focus on right now. And that's what the leadership and management of the resources on the continent need to focus on.
I mean, if we take even just the basic, I mean, the current crisis, the pandemic of COVID-19. I mean, let's just even stay on that point and try and understand just the basic things that makes it visible that this is not what is meant for Africans. It's meant for foreign partners and investors and producers to just come dump their markets and products on us and get their way and access from country to country in the name of collapsing borders. If we take the pandemic, this is a pandemic that requires hand washing, just washing hands, for instance. That's one component of it. And 40% of Africans are still just not living with water, possibility to even have running water. I mean, if this was a cure or a solution to the pandemic, so that infrastructure is not even there. We don't have potable water. We don't want running water to even face that challenge. And you are taking a whole free trade area. Of course, that's the beginning. Isn't that already?
Well, let's just look. You hit on a point there about the pandemic. Let's look at what are the goods and services where, except for a few countries that in Africa, Nigeria, perhaps, for example, maybe Rwanda, who are producing their own sanitizers. The rest is coming from China, India,
Correct.
United States, Europe, and they're all coming here. And, it is us who are not benefiting from even the pandemic, right? We, as a continent, are not even producing anything related to the pandemic, except for a few countries, which probably has about 10% of the market because they're only utilizing it for themselves, for their own country, not even able to sell to the rest of the continent. Why isn't it with this free trade that there's an east, west, north, and south country on the continent that are manufacturing, producing sanitizers, for example, and selling to the rest of Africa? If we are, doing the COVID protocols, why are we not having an African pharmacy company or an African pharmacy conglomerate manufacturing, some sort of antidote? I don't want to call it vaccine because the vaccines already have too many issues, whether it's, as of yesterday, you're hearing about not uranium. They're talking about some. I think it's aluminum in the vaccine going to the brain, autism, Alzheimer's, etc. None of these things are tested, but we have the scientists who can do our own looking at these antidotes for whatever the real cure is for this pandemic or this virus, and looking at immune and autoimmune deficiency syndromes within the continent. We have been able to, as you know, uh, to the surprise of many, we were able to look after Ebola, which was created outside, HIV created outside again for the continent. We surpassed all of these, and I dare say we can also surpass, COVID-19 or whatever they want to call it, right? And the continent has the brain power, the scientists, the epidemiologists to be able to tackle, a virus. It's not that they're not trained; they are trained, and they should be doing it. Why do we have to just sit back and wait for some foreign country to say, "Here we have a vaccine, and if you don't take the vaccine, then you can't travel, you can't do this, or you can't do that." Then we are wasting our time as Africans.
Correct. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Pan African Daily TV. If you're joining the stream tonight and you're late, we are on the topic Africa Free Trade Continental Area and the role in African leadership or an African leadership. What has this got to do with Africans? Is it really an agreement that goes to works for African, or is just another scam like the others? Anyway, critics are saying this is the first step to the liberalization of the market or intertrade among African states. And we already are current of the fact that 54 out of the 55 countries, apart from Eritrea, have signed this agreement, and it was launched on the 1st of January 2021. Now, with us in our studio is a special guest and expert, Ambassador Dr. Wallace Williams, who is also the founding chairperson for African Development Goals Initiative, and also, he is also the founding chairman of AfroCracy. Now, his missions is always been Africans doing it for themselves by Africans, and also the vision of AfroCracy has also been African solutions to Africa's problem, as we all know on the Pan African Daily TV. Next question, His Excellency. The youth, you made a very important analysis. 70% of Africa's youth and its resources are the young people. Now, the African leadership has never, ever, or let's not be so really straight to the point. Of course, they have never, ever thought as this as a potential for the continent. We're talking about COVID. We saw how COVID came, surprised everybody, surprised Africans themselves. And the young people, particularly women and market people, just jump and start producing the mask. Isn't that a potential that this leadership should actually focus on its young people and innovation?
Of course. As I said before, African youths are innovative and they need to be empowered. Now, let's look at the imbalance of how African leadership spend our money and our resources. They go after white elephant structures. They go after large projects, most of which have debt hanging over it. Instead of setting yearly goals, education first, educate the youth free of charge, because that money that you're spending for a debt, you could have spent on an investment in the youth, which will give you benefits and give you profitability. All right.
Mhm.
What about health? You talked about water here. So 1 year you have African education to be implemented in all the countries on the continent. Next year you look after health. Forget about these large, wasted, useless projects with debt hanging over it that has no use for the youths of the country. Why are you building large, big stadiums? How many times are you going to use those stadiums? Are we all footballers? Are we all baseball players? Etc. It's just a monument as far as I'm concerned. Why are you wasting a lot of money on old technologies and old projects when you can be looking at smart young men and young women who can be incubated to do IT, to do digital technology, These are the things we need to focus on. We need to spend the money on the youths and don't spend the money on large projects which are of no use to the country, which produces debt for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And if you don't pay off those debts, they take over your facilities. What are we talking about? The youth is the future, and you must invest in the youth. And I'm saying free education from primary to tertiary. Why should, parents be struggling to pay fees, academic fees in the country, where the country that they are living in has funds, resources that can be applied to them instead, and bring them up, empower them. Those are the things that we need to see leaders manage. If you're managing the resources of a country, what is the greatest resource you have at the moment? The greatest
Correct.
resource you have is 70% of the youth of the continent. That is your resource, your major resource, apart from the ones in the ground. You have the live resources of the youth, and you must invest in them. And that is something that we are going to challenge all leaders with. We don't want to hear about, all these major infrastructures. To what benefit is it to the continent, to the country, to Africans as a whole? It's
Mhm.
none. There is no benefit to them. The essential things you need to do, yes, let's look at infrastructure that links all the African countries. Yes, let's look at what resources we can transfer to each other. For example, gas, the African gas pipeline to benefit the rest of the continent. Those are things, those are major, major templates we should be looking at.
Mhm.
Transfer gas from those who are gas producers to their neighbors and to others, and continue on. Those are infrastructure projects. Yes, I can say we can look at, because with gas, you can develop your industry, you can provide energy, you can provide electricity, and those are things that are needed for development. Yes, so why not sit down and do a Marshall template, for providing energy to the continent? Nobody wants Africa to develop, because if we develop, we surpass everybody. Why? We have all the resources. Why do they continue to allow us to fight each other? Why do they supply the guns and the ammunition, make it tribalistic? They don't want the Congo to develop. They don't want West Africa to develop. They don't want Nigeria to develop. They don't want any of the African continents where the resources are, uranium, titanium, whatever you call it. Look at it. There is always the economic hitmen who hit those places and or change the leadership if the leadership starts to get their head together. You'll be surprised that soon enough they will go after Magufuli, they'll go after Kagame, they'll go
Right.
after Nana. Yes, because it is their plan always to make sure that we are the buyers and not the sellers.
Mhm.
We are not the producers, but we are
Definitely.
also the buyers. We must continue to buy. The continent must be a place where cheap goods are dumped, where the materials that we have must never work, the economies must never work. We must be indebted always, whether it's to France. Arikana spoke about these things. PLO Lumumba spoke about these things. So whether it's France, making sure that all French countries continue to send their money to their central bank, right? Whether it's the Chinese with their debt over almost every single country on the continent, and then they take over the industries. So what do we have? We are just, again, becoming a modern day slave. And we cannot continue that way. We have to empower our youth and empower the continent. And the managers of our countries and economies, the leaders, they will have to change their mindset. And if they don't, then the youths should be given an opportunity to run the countries and
Mhm.
given an opportunity to put their ideas in place. And they must
Wow.
participate in the politics. That's what they have to do. There has to be a paradigm shift on the
Mhm.
continent. We can no longer go forward with colonialism and slavery, over 400 or 500 years, and retarded, the continent. They've used us, used our people, used our resources to develop and build their own. The time for that has to stop. The Renaissance must start now. So 2021, as you said, has to be an inward look. COVID did a good thing in that we realize that there are some things we must think about: our health, food security, family, and our country and our continent. Those things came up. And now we have to start to focus on those things. Those are the issues we must focus in. We don't want any genetically modified food. We have organic food. We have organic soil. Continue to concentrate on that. We don't want people controlling our seedlings. We must continue to have our own seed banks, whether it's from a village to village or whether it's from our ministries of agriculture. Those are the things our leaders should be concentrating on. Food security, health, those are things that are necessary. And what COVID has taught us, whether it is a pandemic, whether it is a scam, whatever it is, but it has taught us we must now concentrate on survival. How do you survive? You must survive by the food you eat. You must survive by health. You must survive by your immune system. Build those things up. Sunlight, we have it in abundance. Are they not saying that part of the deficiency in the COVID-19 is lack of vitamin D? We've got it. And we must take it and make use of it. Instead, other people in other countries where it's cold have to use vitamin D supplements. When they looked at most of the deaths in Sweden, it was Somalians. Why? They all covered up and had no sunlight. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we have got to concentrate on survival, food security, health, making sure that we are going to survive no matter what, and use our brains, use our scientists, use our specialists, and get it done.
Absolutely, that's correct. That's very correct. I learned right now. You are sitting there on the continent with a very great brain, which is your associate partner, for instance, and you want to put down a structure, or you already had been working on that. You'll be telling us that in a moment, but I want to bring out a very another newscast or happenings on the continent. Today is the 5th of January 2021, and we are solidarizing with the Amazonian Southern Cameroonians whose leadership was adopted on this same day in Nigeria and taken to the prisons of La République du Cameroon. And we've been seeing a lot of solidarity floating on the social media, calling on the arrest, on the release of these leaders who were unjustly abdicated and have been dumped with no justice, and no negotiations have been going on. So we from the Pan-African Daily TV want to share our solidarity with the people of Southern Cameroon, Ambazonian, and like today is that day where Cameroonians weep and they are asking for justice. And yes, so coming back to our topic today, Excellency, this is also one of the focus where we think that this leadership, this African leadership, cannot just be ready. This is a laughing stock. Of course, it's a good project. It's a good mind to think that we should be collapsing the borders. We should unite through trade. But if you look at the structures and everything seems to go wrong on a continent which is corrupt, which is so faced with a lot of injustice, which are currently 18 countries are currently on war. They're currently in war, particularly the French-speaking African countries. And this government and this continent and this leadership cannot tell us they are ready for trade, when even just the simplest thing has not been done on this. We're talking about corruption. Tell us how. Where is the money going to come to finance all the railways and so somebody would have to finance it. China, for instance, who's going to be the beneficiary? Excellency.
Why do we have to borrow from China and the others? Can we not generate revenue for ourselves? Instead of having corrupt leaders, can we not say to the population, let us tax ourselves, use the revenue for priority projects like we have just talked about: education, health, food security, things that are beneficial to Africans as a priority, that are simple revenue generators that can be done. You know that, okay, if you have to pay for your services, you're taxed. That can be done on the continent. You don't need to go and borrow because the borrowing you're borrowing is not for the priority projects that we just spoke about. It's for major projects that they tell you that they want to lend you for. For example, their own Exim Bank will give them a loan at 1%, and they come on the continent and they take from your country all the funds that you have and give it to you at exorbitant rates for major projects that they will bring their own people, their own technology. They are employed, you are not employed, and they go away with all your funds that you have generated with your own tax money. So tell me, why are you saying, where do we get the money from? The money is there, but we misspend the money. We misuse the money. We are fooled. What happens is that these economic hit countries come in there smiling with their false laughter, with their briefcases, and come and sit down with a few leaders who they either have information on or intelligence on their weaknesses. For example, they buy them off. Here's 10 million fuel, and they're going for a 10 billion project. We look after your wife, we look after your family, you buy your house in Dubai, we buy a house in the UK or the US, and you're happy and you're satisfied to the detriment of the rest of your country. You're selling out your patrimony to foreigners who see your weakness, who know your weakness, and decide that the best thing for them is to come where you have the resources. Every one of them who don't have the resources that you have want you to fight, want you to not have enough funds to prioritize your own projects, but they will come and tell you which projects they will fund. They're prepared to fund. And those projects they're prepared to fund always have a debt trap. And I mean it two ways, debt, D-E-B-T, and D-E-A-T-H. They're both debt traps because they are killing the economy, and you're killing the country, and you're killing the people. So it's debt and death.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep losing you.
I'm saying what they do is they set you up with debt traps. I mean it in two ways, D-E-B-T and D-E-A-T-H. Debt trap, in that you're trapped with the money and the projects they bring to you, and debt of your economy, and of course, by implication, debt of your people, because they cannot survive. They cannot raise their head above the parapet to say that they're surviving. They're always on a day-to-day living. Why should we be seeing so many of our people on the streets trying to sell a bottle of water, trying to sell this or that, the kids to go to school? Why? Why ever should we have Africans on the street? Do you go to Europe and see Europeans on the street selling? No, they have benefit system. They take care of their old and elderly. Why do we have a situation where we cannot behave like we have done in the past? A village grow a child, look after the child, make sure that they go to school, look after our elderly. Those were part of what we had as a culture. And that's why I'm saying Africacy is going back to the renaissance of rebuilding what we have. And what we have was great and can still be great. It just needs to be brought back. And it is the youth who we have to mentor. We have to mentor the youth to bring all of that back. Make sure that our media, we control our media like we're talking to you. Make sure that we put our own narrative out, not what the others, all of the other stations around the world have an Africa program. China has an African program. US CNN has an Africa program. BBC has an Africa program. Where's Africa having a European program or any one of the others? We're having institutes from all of the other. Goethe Institute, Deutsche Welle, is it Mandarin, Confucius? What the hell are we talking about? Were we made to learn their languages, or they have to learn ours? Why don't we set up a Swahili Institute in all of these bloody countries? Why don't we do that, right? Can you go to their countries and take out their resources? No, you can't. They will never allow it. Can you go and take a piece of their land and their natural resources? No, we can't. So we have to be very careful about what is being done on the continent. And this, as you say, collapsing the borders, who is going to benefit? Because if they know we are not prepared, they will move in there. They'll find some lackey, some proxy, and they'll go in there and say they are producing and manufacturing. It's a Tanzanian good. We want to trade with the rest of Africa. And who's going to benefit? It's not Africans. It's not Africans at all. They will still be impoverished. They'll still be poor. So we need to do something about that. We need to empower our youths and invest in the 70% of the continent. That's what we need to do. And prioritize, our investments, prioritize our goals, prioritize our mission and vision for Africans first. There's nothing wrong with it. China looks after Chinese. Good for them. India looks after Indians. Good for them. Europeans look after their people. Good for them. We have to start thinking in the same mindset. We look after our people and we must make our people survive. And we mustn't accept what is just dumped on us. We mustn't accept all of their protocols. We can set our own protocols, health-wise, food-wise, food security. All those things are ingredients of development. And we must set our development agenda. And that's why we set up African Development Goals Initiative. Set our own agendas. Set our own development goals. We don't need to join SDGs and MDGs and World Development Goals. No, we have our own goals. As a continent of 1.2 billion people, we set our own bloody goals. What the hell are we looking at other people's goals? Don't we have brains? Can we not think? What is wrong with Africans? We need to sit down and put our own Marshall Plan together. We need to collapse the false borders that was created in Berlin, where you are. We need to collapse all those false borders and come back to contiguous borders. We need to come back to a United Nations of Africa. That's what we need. We need to get rid of all those colonial yokes that we've been having, because we have thinkers now. We have people who can think. We have people who understand the game that they're playing, the economic hits that they're hitting us with. We know it now. We are aware. Africans have woken up. Africans have woken up. So it just needs more of us to wake up and more of us to challenge the leadership and management of our patrimony and resources. That's what we need.
Correct. And we are not stopping at anything, even if it means we're going to, use all the resources and means to actually collapse this present African leadership.
I didn't hear that. You said what? Sorry, Susan, you said?
I said we are woke and we are stopping at nothing, even if it means we have to use all means to collapse this leadership model. And the leaders of the continent, the young people, also have the opportunity and the capability to do that. What do you know that?
Listen, Susan, I'm not hearing you clear, but let me just tell you this. All we need is a think tank of good leaders get together and say, let's put an African Marshall Plan together. The African Marshall Plan looks at prioritizing our needs, African needs, both in the diaspora and on the continent. Build up our people, empower our people, educate our people, skill up our people, prepare them for work, prepare them for development, prepare them for manufacturing, prepare them for production, making them all, play their part. They must all play their part. So they must stop thinking that they have to depend always on the West or the Chinese or the Indians or the Malaysians, etc. They must start depending on themselves. We have the wherewithal. We have the ability. We have the capability. We have brains, your brain power. Don't let that be adulterated. Start thinking. Put a think tank together. The real think tanks and the people who are reaching the people and who are linking with the youths are the people we need. And I keep saying it, and I've said it before. Get people like Arikana, get people like Pierre Lumumba, get people like Mafunga, Malema, Kagame, others, real thinkers, people who are thinking for our people together. Put a Marshall Plan together, an African Marshall Plan. Implement it. That's what we need to do. No, it's not about talk. Part of the problem we have is that we talk too much, but nobody implements. Everybody talk. They are full of chat. Nobody is implementing. So we need to get together a think tank. We have the brains and the power to do it. Sit down and work out a one-year plan for the continent, and everybody do that 1 year, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's food security. Then you do a 5-year plan, then you do a 10-year plan. What did Mao Zedong do? 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, he planned for the China of today. He planned it and actualized it. 5-year, 10-year. They suffered as a people. They suffered, millions died, but they went through the pain to make sure it happened. Is it because we don't want to go through the pain, but yet we have people dying every day? Millions on the continent are dying? No, we must learn to take the pain. We must learn to take the pain. We need that pain. We need to go through that pain, that period, to come out at the other end as a great nation of people, as a great continent. We must stop being feared, that we fear this, we fear that. You must be fearless. We must become, and I said it before on your program, we must become warriors for our own country, our own continent. We must protect it. We have to. There's no other way. Otherwise, the survival of the Black race, the survival of Africans is, I fear to think what would happen to us if we don't wake up and get leadership in place with the youths. We, as far as we as elders can do, is to imbibe into the youths of today that they must wake up and take charge of their continent, take charge of their future, take charge of their country wherever they are. Take charge. If you don't do that, you're just going to be there as fodder. And as you said, corrupt leaders who are already bought out by these people who know that they can buy them will just use you, abuse you, and get rid of you at the end of the day. You know, the life of an average African will be reduced. And that's for sure. Look at the statistics. Look at the statistics. So we need to make sure that we have good organic food to live long and to continue our lifeline. You know, instead of 40 or 41 point something years, we must be able to live 100. We must be able to live 75, like the rest of the world is doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, I would be opening up the lines to take some questions from the community and the chat. And those that are watching us, I want to thank you for watching us from the Professor Pierre Lumumba page. Just more than thousands of watching. And we have on the Pan-African Daily Facebook page also hundreds watching. We have on the Pan-African Daily TV almost 140 watching, and on my Facebook pages and other platforms that we all are streaming from. Please, we're taking your questions. If you can contact us, if you can call in, you can call in using our WhatsApp number +491578 211-2379, or drop your question via WhatsApp and we would bring it on the table. But I already see a couple of people in the chat making very, very good contribution here and say, it seems as if we keep doing the same thing. And actually have a brother here in the comments saying, thank you, Dr. Susan Tata, for bringing up this wonderful program. But it seems as if every time we keep talking about Africans need to wake up, we keep talking about the need for good governance and leadership, but it's as if the wheel keeps turning at the same point. I think His Excellency, you agree with me that we need consciousness. This is one of the biggest weapon that we need. When we wake up our people and they're conscious and we put a plan, they would follow. Do you think Africans actually ready.
No. Consciousness is one thing. You know, you have conscious music, you have conscious messages, etc. We need, Susan, a plan and an implementation of that plan. That is it at the end of the day. A plan, and it needs a think tank. People must get together and say, we are going to put together a plan for Africa, work that plan, implement that plan. You know, yes, what they're saying there is right, because I'm repeating the same thing too, that it is talk, and no action. That brother who said what he said there is right. What he's saying is that we keep talking about waking up, Africa is waking up. So I said it. Yes, Africa is waking up, but how do you translate having woken up into action? You need to design a plan. You need to put some priorities in place. You need to put some goals, some initiatives, and work it together. Not one country doing one thing and another country doing the other. The think tank is a Marshall Plan for Africa. So all 54 countries at the moment, because we are not a United Nations of Africa, we are just individual countries. But a Marshall Plan for Africa is the first step. And then to implement it, you go step by step, bit by bit, and implement every year, because we need some short-term goals to show results.
Correct.
1 year plans before we go to 5-year plans, because you know the politics on the continent. Everybody wants to be in power and to stay in power. So instead, right, if you're in power, right, let's make sure we see results of you being in power. So you are going to be part of the African Marshall Plan. 1-year goal for the continent this year is X. 1-year goal for 2022 is Y, and we continue that. The continent is moving forward, bit by bit, step by step. All the politics and the interplay at the end of the day will become less important, because we'll be focused on implementing a plan, not talk. Talk is cheap.
Okay. I am just so sorry that I've been missing a couple of calls here, because I wanted His Excellency to finish his talks before I pick up the calls. So the lines are open now, ladies and gentlemen. You can go ahead, launch your calls, and I'll be picking. And the first caller is already online. Hello?
Hello, good evening, my dear sister.
Good evening. Welcome to the Pan-African Daily TV.
Thank you, my dear sister. Before I ask my question, I have one question for you.
For me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I want for you to pay attention so that you will not get me wrong.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Now, a couple times ago, anytime when someone else is a little bit white than us, when we come to the show, we cannot ask him questions. But Sunday, this man, which is called Stephen London or whatever, or it's called that man. But the man come to tell us about the interest of the British people and the American people, and we cannot ask him questions. We are voiceless. I'm the one of those voiceless. And this show program, the sense of this program is we the voiceless can participate, can come. That is why we always are with you. But if some people like that, those guys there, come up show, and we cannot ask them questions what they're telling us. For me, it's let me go crazy.
Okay.
And my question, even though this is the question I really want to ask him that man that day, but I couldn't. As you said that you cannot go good question, I couldn't ask him. Let me ask my other. Mister, as we all will see, now Americans want to come Africa to make business with that. They say they come to help us. Which is they say they come to help us. Okay. So now the soldiers are full up in our country. Now we know these American people train people for them to be jihadi, like Boko Haram and all those people which they are full up in Africa too. They spread them in Africa all over the country. And if you put them military base over there. So which Dr. Osadipo Kwame Nkrumah warned us for to know allow any foreigner to dig British, military base in our life, but we give chance for that. So now, as they come to make business with us, they say they come to help us. In America, most Americans don't descendants in America. They don't have no right, and they didn't help them for them to get them facility to be a citizen over there. They didn't help them. They say that they come to Africa to help Africans. In which way? Now, I want to ask this question. Do you think that this military message which they are getting over there, in any time which Africans say that, no, this agreement, we are not going to agree because it is not perfect for Africa, it will be a war for us, or the war starts. Now, here's my question. You get me a point? Please.
Yes, I try to understand. Okay, thank you so very much for your question. And Excellency, did you get that, or you want me to?
Yeah, just rephrase. I haven't heard him properly.
He was talking about this aid and donor and even whatever agendas, they always come in the name of help. And now they're setting up their military bases out there and still in the name of help. What would it look like? So like if these agreements do not work, is it like it's already a threat of like, you know, just using all the military bases for its people?
First and foremost, you ask yourself the question, is there any African base anywhere, military base anywhere in the world?
No.
No. So why are we encouraging and allowing Chinese, Americans, French, everybody else to set up military bases on the continent? There's only one reason. That is to protect their own interests and the resources they're taking out of the continent. There's a simple mathematics. There's no other reason. And if they need to utilize, their military power to either assist some kind of military exercise that will be to their benefit, either toppling of power, or looking at infrastructure that is being used to bring out, the resources for their own country. Why should African nations allow a military base? What help? He's right. What help are they coming to give and to provide? None, other than to monitor, to spy, to listen, to assist where they want to assist and who they want to assist for their own needs. You can't, as I said before, you can't go and take up land in anybody's country, right, from Africa. You can't go and set up any military base in China or India or Europe. You can't do it. Why are we allowing it?
Okay.
It is stupid. It is absolutely stupid.
All right, we're taking the next call. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, thanks. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm loving the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what is your contribution? What's your question for the show?
Yeah. So as the doctor has put it, all we need is just the plan and the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, the free trade might not work out. It is just a scam. Because if Africa is not united and we do not have a plan, we are not going anywhere. We are not going anywhere because countries can be doing businesses which other countries might not benefit from them.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, we need a plan and the implementation of that plan. That's when the free trade can work out.
Correct. Where are you calling from, sir?
I am calling from Lusaka, Zambia.
From Zambia. And you've been seeing the Chinese very, very active in Zambia. What do you think about it?
This is the same thing we are trying to say. The Chinese are doing bilateral collaboration with Zambia. So that might not benefit other countries if that continues.
Mm-hmm.
So those bilateral collaboration need to be reduced. and they need to benefit other countries which are part of Africa.
Okay. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Yeah, I
Yes.
want to just assist what he's saying there. Thank you for
Yes.
supporting the idea of a Marshall Plan. And you've made a point, which I made earlier on, about bilaterals and about the bilateral agreements that every individual, what I will say, raping of our resources country is doing, right?
Mhm.
And the reason for that is that they have seen and handpicked that they can take out every single one of these countries individually. When they have
Mhm.
a China-Africa agreement, every single one comes up and they do all the nice military things, etc., show them red carpet, etc., and make them sign away their countries and their resources. If we had a very strong African Union, it will not be individual countries negotiating on behalf of each other. It will be the Union. A united African Union negotiate and takes the risk and the agreement on behalf of the member states. And that is what we should be having. We should have people at the African Union, leadership at the African Union, who is working on behalf of the continent. Why should individual countries go and do individual trades and individual agreements by these countries? And most times, some of these things are signed without the fine print being looked at. It is the
Mhm.
African Union or a body like the African Union. I dare say, if the African Union can't do it, then
Yeah.
we should have a parallel organization that should be set up that constitutes the economies of the African continent and negotiate on behalf of all. The stronger
Yes.
you are, the stronger you can negotiate. More individual you are and separated, the weaker you are
Mhm.
to negotiate.
Correct.
And they know that. They know that. So they come to the continent and say, Zambia, let's deal with your aluminum or your bauxite, and we will give you this and that. And the rest of the African continent, does not sign a bilateral with the same country. It should be continent to continent. China, you want to come and do business on the continent? Deal with the African Union. They negotiate the terms. And that is now strength, right? France, you
Mhm.
want to come and do business with the African continent, negotiate with our union. It's a union. But if the union is not working and is working on behalf of the enemy, how we have to put it, then we should find another medium and another institution so to do.
Okay. All right. Next question. Hello.
Yes,
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
I am so pleased. Is this Dr. Wallace on the phone?
Yes, on the show.
I'm happy to be in your presence, sir. You are dynamic. You are powerful. And my sister Susanna, as always, I tell you, you're a beautiful woman, not just for your appearance, but for your intellect. Dr. Wallace, my concern is, has anyone seen the master plan for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? If there is one, has anyone seen it? And Dr. Arikana Chiambori has been talking about this with our ADDI with respect to negotiating on behalf of the continent as opposed to a few countries who has no power economically whatsoever, and they're going to sit down and have a conversation over the future of their country with a country who has a multi-billion-dollar economy. Now, we can fix this. The question is, where do we start? And I mean, I have had some ideas myself, but again, there have to be a master plan. There must be a master plan somewhere. Can you tell me what that master plan is? There is one.
Okay.
So what I would like you to do, throw out your ideas now for the diaspora and the continent to hear. What are your ideas?
All right. I think he just put the question and then left.
So I think what is necessary, what is good, Suzanne, is that these ideas must be flagged and come out. He's asked a very pertinent question. Has anybody seen the master plan? Has people participated in that master plan? You know, the economists, the bankers, the local manufacturers, you know, all the individuals who are stakeholders. Where are the stakeholders on the continent who have participated in this master plan or this agreement? He is correct, very correct.
Okay, we're gonna take this call from South Africa. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, ma'am?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, you're speaking to Charles from South Africa.
Okay, Charles, welcome. How is South Africa doing? I hear that you're already taking the vaccines.
I don't quite much entertain such things of coronavirus because they are part of the propaganda of the world. So, but basically, I've been listening to your conversations out there in the studio, and I quite like what the professor on the other hand is saying. And
yes,
these are the topics which we've been talking all along as Africans, and we know we do talk a lot most of the times, but we lack implementation. Africans, they do have the mouth, a good way of talking, but implementation is not there. So at some point, we end up blaming the education that we've been given by the Western, and then on the other hand, we blame our own efforts. But then, what he's trying to say, what he's actually saying, is that African must stand up, do something that is tangible for its own people. If there's one mistake which Africans are doing, is that each and everyone is hustling for his own plate, and he doesn't even care of the other people on the other side. And of which that's wrong. We Africans, we must develop a new tendency of loving one another before. Because now, like for instance, just make an example. Me and you, we are chilled at one place. And then there's a white guy out there is seeking for help. So when the white guy out there is seeking for help, he will come to one of us seeking for help, and then okay, since we are black guys, we will all rush to help the white guy. And then tomorrow, I'm the one who's seeking the same help which the white guy was looking, and everyone will just back off because I'm an African. So that kind of tendency must be wiped out before we can achieve anything in this continent.
okay. Is that all?
Yeah, I just wanted to add again, but I wanted to make sure that you can hear me what I'm saying.
Yes, we heard you, and
Sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay, another thing which I wanted to emphasize, I'm listening to what these things the other people were calling upon these things of whereby other countries are implementing, like for instance, maybe in South Africa we have gold mines which they belong to the Americans, but they're in South Africa they belong to the same land in the South African land. But we don't own anything from those mines. We own zero. The only thing I remember this other time, people were killed because they were striking to get a raise. I think it was about 30% raise from their from their pay, and then the final decision was let them be killed. And he who made that decision was a fellow African leader leading his own people, and he ordered them to be killed. The people who killed them workers, it was the fellow African policemen who killed their very own. The white man governing that mine is not even there. Instead, the white man just made a phone call. He dealt with he who he hired. Then we Africans, we kill one another. For what? does that mean that we're moving forward? We're moving nowhere. So let's get down with talking, and then we deal with real issues that need to be dealt. Talking doesn't make sense. But again, we need to love one another before we can take any step up, any step forward. Because even like demolishing borders, yes, we might demolish borders, but still, we will still have that hate amongst each other. And if the enemy wants that weakness, and if he sees the weakness, that's where he gets the strategy of actually fighting the other opponent who's trying to do good.
Okay. Thank you very much, brother. Everything you've said is pertinent, exactly like what the ambassador is saying. So thank you and welcome to the show once more. Hello? We're taking this other call. Hello?
Okay. Thank you very much, brother.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Please, can you turn up the other volume on the show that you're watching by you?
Yes, I turned it off.
All
Can you
right.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I want to extend my New Year wishes to Ambassador Wallace. Thank you so much for the very enlightening discussion. And I totally agree with your idea of an African Marshall Plan, and that we absolutely have to prioritize. And in terms of priority, I think that it would make no sense for us to build white elephants in terms of development projects when we cannot feed our people.
Exactly.
Once we can feed our people, then our people will have the chance or the opportunity to think of other sectors that they can develop.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, our Marshall Plan and our priority for the next 5 or 10 years should be agriculture. Because
food security. Food security. Yep.
Yes, food security, agriculture and food security.
Yeah.
If we are not able to feed our people, then anything else we do will not matter. As if you look at the United States where I am, the country has as a goal to feed its people, and it's working very hard to feed its people, despite the fact that for the last few months there has been hunger because of COVID. But the country has as a goal to ensure that its farmers are able to feed its people.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that? You do that by developing your own fertilizer industry.
Mm-hmm.
But we in Africa, we don't need chemical fertilizer.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah, I will support. Yes. I will support what you're saying there, because I've said it. We have organic soil. We must concentrate on developing our food security and agriculture. We have an African Development Bank now, and the Agricultural Development Bank being run by an African. They tried to get rid of him, but it didn't work. And I think we should tap into him and his ideas for food security and agriculture for the continent. And we must never think of having any foreigner coming to develop our seeds and genetically modify our plants and our culture. Forget that. That must be one of the no-nos for us. And yes, if we can accelerate that using our own natural fertilizers that we've been using for thousands of years, then we are on the way to increasing the longevity of our people, the lack of vitamin and other deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies of our people. And yes, as you said, once we've got that, people can now think of other projects. But I will dare say that food security, yes, could be priority number one, education or health, priority number two, and they can be working either in tandem or linear, one of the two. But it's essential that that be part of the Marshall Plan. And, let's look at what is happening, for example, on the continent. You have Chinese and others coming to our continent and taking away our food and shipping it back to their own country, coming and doing around the whole continent in the seas, trawling our fish, going on the lakes within the continent and taking our food and our food security. Are we not thinking?
Absolutely. Okay. The next call. Yes, I'll still pick your call again. The calls are just coming in. Please be patient. We'll pick one after the other. The ambassador is here. And for those that are watching now, he's still going to be here on Thursday with Professor PLO Lumumba on another very heated topic, what next? And exactly what he's talking about, the think tank and the Marshall Plan for Africa would be introduced and what are the steps to take. So be patient. Ambassador Wallace is going to be here for a very long time until we implement the Africa that we want. Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Good evening.
Is it good afternoon? Good afternoon or good evening?
Good afternoon to you. Good evening to me. Yes.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, my name is Alfred Mensah.
Yes.
I'm a Ghanaian, basically based in the US, in Boston, in Massachusetts.
Okay.
I've been following your programs of late through Professor Lumumba's page on Facebook, and I do appreciate everything that you've been doing to help Africa. I do also greet Ambassador Wallace,
yes,
for his submission. In fact, we Africa have prominent and then good people who can think for our continent. But instead of that, we have a poor leadership. African problems are all about poor leadership. You know, so as Professor Ambassador Wallace was saying, we need the architect who can sit down to plan for Africa. It's not about talking, it's not about anything. It's about implementation of policies which can help the people of Africa. You know, the Western world is tapping the good ones from Africa, and they are making use of it to just develop their countries. What are we doing? Our leaders always talk. Africa, you know, be meeting all the time. They've been speaking, put everything together on paper. Yes, it's time we all come together and build our continent, because the Western world have just taken Africa as their farm. They eat from Africa. They're taking it as their farms. That's not good. Africa have people, prominent people, the intellect, who can think for Africa. He has mentioned most of the people that we can even contact, or we can bring them together to think for Africa. And our leadership, because of greediness and poor leadership, and I don't know how to put it. Come to America here. We have a lot of Ghanaians, Africans here, who are well-trained, well-educated people who they need to go back to Africa to help the continent, but they are not going, because if you ask them, they said, oh, the continent, our leaders are greedy, they work. Even as I'm talking to you now, I have my own organization here that I was trying to supply multivitamin for pregnant women and vast other vitamin A and all that in Africa, especially in Ghana. My coordinator went to Ghana and he couldn't even get somebody, an official to talk to. 1 week, even ministries and all that, no one to talk to, because he's not coming with money. Whoever leading my coordinator to the ministry is not getting money. We didn't pay him money because he's not going to take him to anywhere. So these are some of the problems that we are facing. Our leadership is our problem. So it's time, the youth of Africa, we need to rise up and let the people, our leaders, know that it's time Africa needs to develop, rather than to talk and talk and talk without any implementation. Thank you, sister, and I think we will continue to support our policies in Africa. Thank you, Dr. Ambassador Wallace.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be getting back to Ambassador Wallace in a very short time, and please hold the line for your call. I'm going to pick your call after this break. Watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history,
One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home.
So we're going back to studio, and I'm taking this call. Ambassador Wallace, I'll just pick the call because there's just so many, and you will address, because I think most of them are just really commenting on what you're saying and the steps forward. Hello, doctor.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Sumantende. Happy New Year.
You did not learn my name. I forgave you for me.
I'm happy because at least I have the first woman calling today. Okay, go ahead, sister.
I have a series of questions I would like to ask the ambassador. I thought we already have a plan, Susan.
Yes.
Remember, we had one doctor coming and even Usman Torre was making some analysis from it. Is that not a plan?
The Rapid Africa plan, yes, that's a plan as well. But what the ambassador is talking about, the think tank of the continent, and this Rapid Africa plan is also a part of it.
All right. Okay,
yes.
Fine. And two is, should we not be either annulling or renegotiating colonial projects with the African Continental Free Trade Area? Should we not be with the abolition of the boundaries and all that? That means there is no country as such. We have Africa now. Should those contracts which have been colonial and was owned by all these multinationals and sucking all our resources out, should it not be annulled or renegotiated? That is one. 3, we need, how do we get our president of the AU or important persons from the AU coming to the Pan-African Daily TV to answer questions? Because we don't know what is happening. We are always talking, we don't know whether it reaches them or it doesn't reach them, what they are doing, we don't even understand. So they need to come to answer questions. And then the last one is the vaccine. All our professors that are virologists and biologists and, in fact, immunologists and all the professors of science that we know, can they not come up with vaccines for Africa specifically? Why are we giving our brains to every other person except our people? That is what I do not understand. Yes, so these are some of the things I'd like the ambassador to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Queen. Yes, I'm going to hand it over because I think the questions are not. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Queen. You made a very, very important and poignant first point. All colonial contracts, which has been also a major debt to the continent, should be annulled, not renegotiated. We don't want to renegotiate colonial contracts because it has been to the advantage of the colonists. What we have to do is annul them. And if you want to come based on our new strategy, policy, our own plans for the continent, if you want to participate and transfer knowledge, develop local content, improve our skills, etc., and invest in partnership, that should be part of the strategy that you can join it, right? On the issue of the virologists, immunologists, epidemiologists that we have, I made the point that we should now, and we do have some people who are already looking into these viruses. They can develop their own antidotes. And I did not say, again, I did not say vaccines. I said antidotes, because as far as you will see, all vaccines have been given indemnity. And that is a very dangerous agenda for Africans. if they are given indemnity, as many of our African people that are being killed, they have no recourse for themselves, because the Pfizers of this world, the Modernas of this world, all of these vaccines that all of a sudden, within 6 months, something that takes 10 years to trial is trialed and can be rolled out, and then they want to start with Africa. And the key thing is that they have no one to blame, none of the vaccine manufacturers, and they're all over the world, except Africa. So we need to look in, get those very same people to come together as a group as well, of scientists, and come up with their own antidotes. Do the research, come up with your own antidotes, get your own equivalent of FDA to standardize, and that's what you say you are going to use, not what they say they want you to use. To hell with that. Get up your own antidotes. We have the people, and that's what I've been saying. On the question of the African Union coming to answer questions on Pan-African TV or any other African television, you might be waiting till the cows come home, because they do not want to be challenged for what they do in the present African Union, because they do not have the leadership who are in touch with the people and who have a people-centric agenda. And that's why I said earlier on, since they are not working on behalf of the African continent, there should be a parallel organization set up who will defend the continent's policies, defend the economy of the continent, defend the negotiations of the continent, not individual countries. Because if they were strong enough, they would have been, and if they were focused enough, they would have been the ones to negotiate on behalf of every African country at the moment. So you will not get, I dare say, any member of the African Union at the moment coming to a television program where they'll be challenged as to what the hell are they doing for the continent and what are they implementing for the continent. It's not going to happen until you change the concept of the African Union. I think the African Union needs to be restructured. It needs to be renamed, perhaps, and need to be redirected, refocused, because the focus at the moment does not lie with the prioritization of African development.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, God. I'm sorry. Please keep your questions now short so that I can at least go all the rounds. Hello.
Yes. Good afternoon again. Good evening. Thanks for taking my call again, Dr. Okay, the ideas I refer to here is, you mentioned two of them earlier: education and well, let me start with education. Too often, I hear people identifying themselves by the name of the country that they were born in. We have to stop that, because it shows a disconnect. We cannot connect to each other if we identify by these small countries. If we do not accept ourselves as being Africans, we're going to have a problem. We're going to continue to have problems. That's one. Number two, I have been looking at this for a minute, and I know it's going to take at some point some governmental involvement. But if we look at every country and see what are their major imports, and I'm not talking about huge people now, I'm talking about the average Joe who have a little bit of resource. And start an industry in that area. It can be small, even if it's at village level. Look at the import and see if we can cut back on that imported product to save some of your foreign exchange, if that's what you're using to buy these foreign products. Cut back on the foreign exchange. Now That's another issue. Now, lastly, and think about this. It might be a stretch for this to happen, but think about it. We have negotiated poorly with some of these foreign countries, and it's not to the benefit of the African continent. Now, this might seem a little outrageous here, might seem a little strange, but think about it. If we renegotiate with our African countries and remove the borders, change the name of the country, wouldn't some of these agreements that we signed be null and void? If we can remove the borders and change the name, so no longer, let's say for instance, let's say China was negotiating with Tanzania. And, well, let me use an area that I'm more familiar with. Let's say they had an agreement with Gambia. And we removed the borders between Gambia and Senegal. And we call the area a different name. Whatever contract that was signed with China, between China and Gambia, can no longer be valid because it's a different unit now. And I would like to hear from my brothers and sisters who are familiar with trade law. Because I think some of these negotiations, I know, they are working against us. And we have to get out of it. We can't wait for 50 years to get out of these contracts, these agreements. We have to get out of it sooner. Have too much to lose right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're correct in what you're saying. There is something in law, in trade and business, which is called unfair contracts. Unfair contracts. And a lot of the contracts on the African continent has been unfair. They can be revoked. But it needs a united, and as I said it before, a united union of the African countries to now say, we are going to make all these contracts null and void and renegotiate them with strength as a united front, not as individuals. And that is what is important. The importance is uniting the countries that have all these various vagaries in their contracts, which have all been unfair, and make them null and void under a unity Africa, a union of Africa that could be an economic union totally. We have the ECOWAS, we have SADC, we have COMESA. They can all come together as one, economic force and say, right, we are going to renegotiate. We're making all contracts on the continent null and void, and we are going to renegotiate if we want to renegotiate with these people. It's as simple as that. Because if you're united as a force, you'll do it. As you rightfully said, the Chinese call themselves Chinese. They don't call themselves anything else. The Indians call themselves Indians. We individually call ourselves different African country members rather than saying we are Africans. We say we are Africans when it's convenient to say so. But you're right. Maybe the mindset is that we should just say we are Africans. End of story. But I come from the province of Ghana, or I come from the province of Gambia, but I'm an African. That's it. Once you have that mindset, then you're thinking like the Chinese. Americans say, I'm an American. I'm going back to America. I'm an American. British say, I'm British. So what the hell? We are Africans, of course. We can continue to call ourselves Africans, and then we can say which province we are from. Because I would not say it as a country, more like a province, because we need to unite as nations.
Exactly. All right. I think this brother that was talking about agriculture, we didn't finish his question. Hello?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sue, for taking me back. Ambassador Williams, again, very exciting topic today. Again, as I was saying, that and supporting your discussion about a Marshall Plan and to prioritize. How about we start small?
Yes.
While the policymakers are debating at the top, or the think tanks that they are trying to figure out what to prioritize in, how about those of us in the villages? As a people, how can we start today using human urine as fertilizer? That would that would increase our production by almost 100% overnight. And
You're brilliant there, because urine is urea in its purest form. Urine is urea. And I remember growing up as a kid, putting urine for all the plants, and they were growing fast and very tasty too. And if you know that there is a African medicine that has been employed by our ancestors hundreds of years ago, of drinking your own urine. Yes, for health reasons. So and when you use urine for fertilizers, you know, he rightfully said, you accelerate your plant production. So he is absolutely correct. So we can do that. Gather all our urine and use that as natural fertilizers. Why we bring in herbicides and chemical fertilizers into our soil? And sometimes those soils are destroyed and you can't use it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. You know, we have an organic continent. We have the richest soil, one of the richest soils in the world. You know, productive. You know, for food security that we need, and the agriculture that we need. So I like that idea. Paradigm shift. Let's go natural. Use our urine.
Yeah, and what if we took that idea as a Marshall Plan to prioritize that every village, they should learn how to collect the urine and utilize it in fertilizing their corn or their beans or their tomatoes. The thing can out and put out a business plan in place where the colleges of agriculture in every single country can learn and teach our mothers who didn't go to school how to collect the urine and apply it, whether it's to plantain, or to cocoyams, or to tomatoes. All that research has been done. It is there. Secondly,
what's your name? What's your name?
I will give it. I'll put him in
Please,
contact.
we need to link. This is what you call policy in action, implementation, and ideas taking place immediately. This is something that can be implemented very easily, as he said, very early, without waiting for the policymakers and the think tanks, because we're talking about food security here and going organic, and that's brilliant, and that stops chemical fertilizers immediately on the continent. And I think we should get together with him.
Okay, brother, I'm talking to the caller. I know. Is it just an idea, or you're working on a project like that?
I'm actually working on a project like that with refugees, with the Southern Cameroon refugees in Nigeria, and with Southern Cameroonians in Southern Cameroon, where they're actually collecting, the urine right
Very
now.
good. We'll use that as a model. Use that as a model. Send the details to myself, Professor Lumumba, and Suzanne. Let's adopt that as a model. Brilliant. Love it.
Okay, so we'll get in touch with you, get you on this model, and of course, be on the show and tell us about this project.
Yes,
okay?
Explain it. Come on the show and distribute the idea. Because this is what we need. Implementation.
All right.
I will.
Brilliant. Thank you. Wonderful. Good. Yes, we're getting somewhere, and I think
there's a one win already.
Yeah, that's not even the first time we've been talking about these things, but now it's time for implementation, like you said. Hello?
Exactly. I don't want to talk, and I don't want talkers. I don't want anybody to come on your show or anywhere we are in any conference and be talking. Tell me about plans. Tell me about implementation. Tell me about solutions. African solutions to African problems.
By Africans.
By Africans. Africans
Thank you.
For themselves, thinking for themselves, by themselves. And that's what he's doing as an African, thinking about solutions by himself for ourselves. And I adopt that immediately.
All right. We have a caller, I think the last caller on the line. Hello.
Okay, Sisi, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you. Good evening. Yes, Happy New Year.
That's another story to tell another day. If it's Happy New Year. But anyway, Uncle Wallace, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
I love your spirit. I love your spirit, Uncle Wallace, because the fire that you have inside you, I feel like we are identical. Honestly, I feel like we are identical twins because I feel that spirit so much. See, I went home, as the brother previously said that he wanted to implement some vitamins in Ghana, and he didn't go nowhere. I personally, like I always said, I love IT is my preferred anyway. I went home. I wanted to implement what we call ISP, that is Internet Service Provider, because one example, when we talking on the air like this, the line cuts, fluctuation of data fluctuation, buffering, and all that, not flowing. We have what we call Ghana One, the satellite. We have the submarine fiber laid there. Why is it that we cannot have data flow using the fiber optic to connect the inner cities and the towns and the homes, so that we can have free flow of data when we're talking, or whether video call or data sending on transceiving will be easier. I went home to do this one. Guess what? I didn't go anywhere. I came back to England with my hands like that because they want me to pay so much money outside the capital that I went home for to set up this business. So I have to come home. I have to come back to England. That's one thing. Second thing, as my brother also mentioned about the urea for the fertilizer. What I will also like to add with it, if I'll be permitted, is that you can also use ashes. When you burn charcoal or wood to ashes. The ashes is another form of fertilizing the soil. That's one. Secondly, thirdly, I also will encourage Uncle Wallace that see, as you mentioned about security, I'm also very much into security in all facets, whether air, land, sea, name them, or cyber, name them. I love it, and I'm into it. So I will also, due to your fire of setting up strategic plan as Marshall plan, I also employ that if we also put up security, talking about security for our land. We're talking about security, food security, that's number one. That's also very important anyway. Even when we go to the food as a soldier, we need to eat. But the food security is very important, as well as the border security and internal security, because as we are much aware, these people have come, they have done their reconnaissance on our land. They know where the targets are. They put all their ammunitions all over the places, in the targeted places. We have to be able to know where and how to disarm them when we need to, not when they want to use it. But we have to be prepared that when this is where they are, how are they going to approach it?
You've made an excellent point there. Sorry, can I intervene? You made an excellent point on the security of our resources. Get in touch with Susan and put your contact so we can talk with you, because I have spoken before on the program about securing our natural resources, and we need to do that. All their satellite technology, they have the capability of MRI imagery, and they know where the resources are in the space on the African continent, and they can target it. So they will now come in very cleverly and want to do a buyout of a particular chief or buyout of a particular king who has the influence in that area, knowing fully well, and they'll just set up a warehouse and put their walls around it and barbed wire and go straight for your resource. So we need to be able to protect that and also ensure that they are not selling out our resources through one or two individuals who happen to have some sort of influence, either as a chief or king over the land area. And that has been happening, as you know, in many places of Africa. That needs to stop as well. So we need to put a plan together for that. And I welcome your ideas to be implemented. And send it to Suzanne, and let's get together with you as well.
Correct.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too. Good. I think we'll be rounding up the show in a couple of minutes. Ambassador, you want to conclude?
Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Suzanne. I look forward to talking with you again on a very sensitive topic later in the week. The conclusion is that everyone seems to now understand that we can't move the continent forward with a free trade area if we don't have a Marshall Plan, if we are not ready, right? And if we are not ready to implement what is going to be to our benefit and have a prioritization in place. Again, as I said, this must be African solutions to African problems by Africans. It must be Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves, whatever the issues are, whether it is a virus, whether it is food security, we have the think tanks that can do it. So in conclusion, we need to start implementing and stop talking. Implement, implement, implement. Stop the goddamn talking. We don't need it.
Good. Implementation and stop talking. That is the Mission Possible 2021 on the Pan-African Daily TV. Dear listeners, dear followers, dear Pan-Africans worldwide, that is the spirit. Mission Possible 2021 on the Pan-African Daily TV is implementation. And coming up is the Marshall Plan for Africa. Like I said before, we're going to have Ambassador Wallace again here on Thursday. Save the date on Thursday, but he's going to come with a powerful backup, Professor Pierre Olumumba. And the topic for that day, we're going to be talking about a media that works for Africa, because without the media, we're going nowhere. So thank you, Excellency, for being here tonight. And we see ourselves on Thursday, same time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So good. What is it that we know everything and know nothing? What is wrong with us Africans? We know everything. Basically, we have solutions to our problems, but what is it that is keeping us apart? What is it that works against us? Is it the Western system and all these kind of agendas on the continent, or is it us? Coming up next tomorrow is a powerful guest. And this guest is going to be talking. She's a female. She's a queen. And she's done a lot of research and videos on how we are our very self-enemy. Yes, we have never talked about this issue or this as a challenge that we need to solve. We work against each other. We manipulate ourselves. I mean, we just disunited. We're not united, and that's why it's very easy to penetrate Africa. If you don't penetrate the families, you're going to penetrate the governments. If you don't penetrate the governments, you're going to penetrate the chiefs. You don't penetrate the chiefs, you're going to penetrate, you're going to penetrate Africans themselves to work against themselves. What is that is keeping us against each other? What? We want to discuss that tomorrow on this topic with a sister called Emuna Yisrael. Emuna Yisrael is going to talk to us about soul improvement. It's one of the major achievements and one of the major solutions to Africa's challenges that no one has been talking about. And the topic tomorrow is going to be the rebirth of a new nation versus the rebirth of the angry Black woman. Wow. When I saw the topic, I was like, please, Queen, come on board. Come on board. Yes. So Emuna is going to tell us about why we need to grow up and what is our problem, as a matter of fact. And we're suffering from some kind of generic trauma. And we also disabled, and we think that we are able. What is the problem amongst us? Tomorrow, please tune in. And this is going to be one of the most interesting conversations that we're going to have starting this year, 2021. We are our own enemies. We need to start by improving our soul and respect one another and treat each other as Africans and treat ourselves as brothers and sisters, and our problems would be minimal. On Thursday, I already told you, Professor Pielo Lumumba would be live on this show, and we're going to be talking about the need for a Pan-African media that works for the continent. I mean, we've all seen in the past and even in the present that CNN works for America, BBC works for Britain, Al Jazeera works even for the Arabs, and Deutsche Welle works for Germany, and all the mainstream medias or China news or whatever. And no media has been working for Africa. What is that is keeping us? Because we're fragmented, because we're so little divided, from our little 54 countries to our presidents that are 54 to our individual selves. We are disunited. This has to stop. For us to get the Africa that we want, we need to start from the homes to build the community and build the society and build the continent. I'm excited about the conversation on Thursday. Who will be sitting on the Pan-African Daily TV on Friday, ladies and gentlemen? Professor James Small is coming with a powerful backup, because like I told you on the 1st or on the 2nd of January, it's not going to be easy on the Pan-African Daily TV. We've been talking and being a little bit passive, and we've been understanding a lot. But right now, we're going to be very, very aggressive, very, very aggressive. We are not going to be smiling at all. So Professor James Small is going to come with a backup on the topic of culture and development. Because we keep talking about political, economic systems and stuff. What about our culture? The African culture and our values that we hold could be the game changer. We know it. Putting our agriculture in stuff like the brothers have been calling, we need to go back to the way our mothers used to do it, our ancestors used to do it, without policies and politics and Europeans coming to petition us. Talking about our healthcare system, we need to just go back, like Tanzania announced, we're going to be looking for solutions to our COVID from a herbalist. Yes, that is the point we're talking about. That is the nerves it takes to move Africa forward. Those are the balls that African presidents and leaders need to copy. To stand and say, you know what, thank you so very much for your solution, but I think I am smart enough to get mine. That is the kind of Africa that we want. It is not the African that they package everything and bring to us. That is not going to work. You watching me, young Africans, it is time for you to wake up. How much more are we going to say this? How much more? We, the African mothers, the queens on the continent, we're not going to take it lighter with you this time around. Mothers are rising, and we are all rallying behind Dr. Chikombori Core. That's going to be the queen mother and other mothers surrounding her. Lions are awake, and we're not going to take it easy with you. No. So please, wake up. No one is going to come and tell you this Africa Free Trade Continental area works for you. It's a damn lie. Doesn't work for Africa, never had worked for Africa, will not work in the interest of the common people that you are. You need to wake up and sit up. We are too passive. We are too tolerant. We are too, too emotional. We need to be professional, and we need to take this time the bull by the horns. And you can see Ambassador Wallace saying in very clear terms, we need a Marshall Plan. Of course, Europe has a Marshall Plan for Africa. Germany has a Marshall Plan for Africa. America has a plan for Africa. China already had a plan for Africa. Russia, all the countries. Africa doesn't have a plan for itself, talk less of having a plan for Europe. What is Africa's plan for Europe, for instance? What is it? Send its young people, its young brains on the continent to be refugees in camps and begging for crumbs of bread and being shipped and killed in the Mediterranean? What is the Africa plan for Europe, for instance? So we need a plan. We need a Marshall Plan. We're not going to be talking in the back doors. We have a media, and we're going to say it the way it is. Sometimes we say, oh, we come here and expose a plan. The African Marshall Plan for Europe, it's visible. It's on the net. You download it, you're going to see all those milestones. Nobody's hiding anything again from us. And so why do we always think that, oh, they would know what? Nobody's going to know nothing. Wake up and take your responsibility in building the Africa that we want. All of us are getting on this journey, and we are going to do it. Guarantee it. Trust. We're going to do. We deliver on promise, isn't it? That's the Africa we want. So you young lions, quit sleeping and quit thinking that all these elders, our leaders, they're just working for Europe and working for foreign governments, of course, in the need or in the intention of doing something for the people. But at the end of the day, 70% of you young people, 90% are unemployed. So what policies actually do work for us? Which ones? What kind of agendas in the 5 decades that we've been existing on? So we want to talk about the need for an African culture and going back to our values, but also one point and topic that we've still not digested. I mean, some people say that we're going for before and for back. I said it in pidgin. Yes, we need to know our history, and that the professors are putting out a plan out there. So we're going to get a Marshall Plan that is inclusive of our culture, our indigenous culture, and us as a people. Afrocentric consciousness is one of the biggest challenge. If we are still going to say we're developing Africa and we're still worshiping foreign gods, it's never going to work. If we still have centers of Buddhists and other temples and churches of religious system that are not Afrocentric, it's not going to work. Until we start building our own temples, then we can start talking about the Africa we want, our values, our spirituality, our culture, our food, and what we believe in. So on this week, there is going to be also Kojo, who would be joining us from Ghana, and we're actually going to be talking about African spirituality and the way forward. We know all the solutions. Now we're talking about implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful, awesome pleasure being here with you tonight. And like I say again, I want to share my solidarity, me personally, as a daughter of the Southern Cameroonians and Africans. I mean, born in Southern Cameroons, but African first. I want to share my solidarity with all the prisoners in the cells and prisons of Cameroons who were abdicated for just talking and crying out about the need for justice. Today is the 5th of January, and 10 or think more, dozens of those that were the leaders that of the struggle that were abdicated makes it today a couple of years that they haven't have access to pure justice. So our solidarity, Africans worldwide, are with you and all other that are sitting in prisons in South Africa, or those that are moving on the road, refugees that are looking for survival out of the continent. What a shame to Africa. What a shame. But this time around, we're not going to cry our tears out. We are going to work to build the Africa that we want. So I'll see you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Be on time. Yes, be on time. You've seen that I am on time. This is 2021. So we're starting with the topic, the birth of a new nation versus the birth of an angry Black woman. Why? Watch it tomorrow and we see ourselves. Oh, no video. So we see ourselves tomorrow, same time. And I want to thank all of you for joining. I've seen a lot of people. Chichi is saying wonderful platform. And Congo is saying thank you, Susan. And Noblesse, oh, it's been a long time, Noblesse. I didn't see you here. You say Faki must go. Of course, 4 more years. Please, he must go. Yeah. Sylvia, thank you so very much for being here. Kofi, all of you, Tyler, wow. I see. And those of you watching from multiple platforms, we keep the ball rolling and stay focused, and we shall not let ourselves as African people down. No way. Not today, not tomorrow. Good night. We see ourselves tomorrow, same time. Bye-bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora.